This evening we're going to have a look at Educating the Right Way by Michael Apple and What is Curriculum Theory by William Pinar. And they seem to be fairly similar in their thinking insofar as they focus on curriculum theory and history and the historical framework in which it's developed over the past 60 years, 50 to 60 years. And both of them are really alike in terms of seeing that there needs to be changes and there's limitations in terms of the business management approach to education today. And an important piece of that is to understand the historical development and the framework in which all of this developed. As educators, we've always reflected on the pendulum and how the pendulum moves back and forth. And just from class last week, we looked at the movement of education theory from Texas to Alberta and then towards the east in Ontario and the Atlantic provinces, and that there is kind of a general trend. And in terms of looking at the framework that we're looking at right here is we look at it began in the South in terms of the desegregation of schools back in the 50s and 60s. And it's ultimately both Pinner and Apple see that teachers have lost control of the curriculum. Teachers are disempowered, de-intellectualized, and Pinner describes it as teachers have been reduced to domestic workers. And that there is, from experience, is true because the school districts are reluctant to give independent thought towards the teachers. And part of this is influenced by a global phenomena towards the business model of schools where there's a tremendous focus on test results. And this focus on test results has a direct impact on curriculum, what is taught, and how it is taught. This business model is in some ways comparative to sport and the evolution of sport over the last 50 years. And it's really interesting that Pinner brought up the notion in terms of the Cold War and how that influenced the education. For example, Kennedy in the early 60s in his administration was looking for in education to build courage, toughness, and freedom, and those three characteristics through the educational system. And Pinner links the Cold War with curriculum reform to produce gendered ideology, athleticism, and physical fitness, and manliness. And that there are links with Pinner's ideas to some degree, insofar as Pinner saw that it was the white male that was empowered through it all. Even the white lower socioeconomic class were marginalized, as were black females. And so as it evolves, there's a real link I see to Apple's act of repositioning. And but before I go to the repositioning, I'll go just link in the systems in terms of the focus on the test scores. And it was really interesting from an athletic background that I come from. I've always, as a coach, you would always wrestle with, well, are you to be autocratic and to attain the immediate results, or do you involve the players in the decision making in the process to get them to internalize the concepts and sacrifice results initially, but in the long term the results are longer lasting, and they're with player buy-ins, then it results in long-term effects. uh, accomplishments. And it's really interesting that in the Apple book, there was a study done by Bowler that Apple cites that looked at the traditional uh, method of education that was towards achieving the business model in terms of achieving the results, focused on test scores. And what Bowler found was that the traditional method, um, the autocratic typist style, led to an increase in a dislike for mathematics. It disadvantaged the females in the working class, and whereas the student-centered approach, it took more time. There was a little bit of material that was sacrificed, and it was more of a process of working it through together on an individual basis. And it led to greater equity. The females did better, and so overall, in terms of a global result, you would see that the student-centered approach was better long term. This here links with um, Apple's active repositioning, and his active repositioning is his belief that practices and policies should be evaluated from the perspective of those with the least power, and that there is in my and one of the biggest take-home messages in these two readings is to look at things educationally from those that are most disadvantaged, marginalized, oppressed, or in a position of least power. This relates to, for example, Malcolm Gladwell's Matthew effect, and the Matthew effect is that whereby the athletically, if you look at professional sport like hockey, professional soccer, the people that are born in the first 4 to 6 months probably account for approximately 75 to 80% of the professional athletes in those sports. And what happens is that these players become involved because they're bigger and stronger at a younger age, because they're older. Then what happens is they end up getting selected for the elite teams. Then they receive the elite coaching. Then this becomes a cycle because they've received the elite coaching and training programs. Then they get better again and progress faster, and so they continue in that cycle. So unless someone is fortunate enough to make that elite team at a young age, they are extremely disadvantaged in terms of making a team as they become an elite team as they become older, and because they haven't been in that cycle of elitism from the beginning. And this here is really one of the key points that I will leave with this in terms of looking from at things educationally from this active repositioning. It's a very strong point that I never had before I did these two readings, and something that I will carry forward in terms of applying it and promoting it where possible. And I'll say that that's it for tonight.